Hello, my name is Michael Kuzer, a student of the Eternal Mysteries. Thank you for coming today to share my delight in learning a tiny bit about the secrets of nature and the cosmos. I traveled way out to the far reaches of consciousness, found a pile of treasure, and have come home to tell you about my adventures. At first, I jammed my pockets with gold coins and dreamed of changing the world with proof that I'd been where I said. Only by fits and starts did I realize that the gold coins were only symbols of my truth, as the butterfly is a symbol of transformation. Tick tock, tick tock. What is time? And what is memory? Why did Salvador Dali in 1931 name this small painting The Persistence of Memory? I grew up in an average Midwestern town, Troy, Ohio. We'd help our friends bale hay in the summer or rock their fields. You ride on a metal sled behind a tractor and gather all the rocks that the soil has heaved up over the winter. I learned that the earth itself is alive and moving. In early summer, we'd stand in the corn, shut our eyes, and listen to the new cells popping into existence. Once we could hear the action, we'd open our eyes and stare at the corn until we could see it growing. To read about nature, in addition to living in it, I only had to run 1 minute to the public library. Back then, goldfish swam in a fountain out front. In winter, I would look at the fish under the ice and wonder how they survived. What were they thinking down there? One winter night, the moon gripped me with unusual rings. I stood in the freezing air as long as I could take it, but only years later learned about ice crystals in the upper atmosphere refracting light. My whole world went moon mad that year, with the Apollo program nearing fulfillment. Here's an illustration from the Apollo Mission Training Manual. Neil Armstrong took one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Astronauts showed us Earth for the first time. It would take another 40 years before I could finally see the planet to understand that the Parthenon was curved to match the curvature of Earth and exactly as long as 1 arcsecond of its mean circumference. NASA in May 2011 announced the results of Gravity Probe B by saying Einstein was right again. There's a space-time vortex around Earth, and its shape precisely matches the predictions of Einstein's theory of gravity. No surprise to me, the ancient system of metrology also has mathematical and physical functions that help me negotiate curves in the space-time vortex. Philosophers and learned people of all ages have always spoken of number as a way to understand the secrets of the universe. Who knew? I need a fresh perspective to see what has been right in front of me my whole life, hidden in plain sight. This tropical fish, for example, is our planet in ultraviolet light as seen from the moon in 1972. Dr. George Carruthers, the scientist pictured here, invented and developed the gold-plated camera for the Apollo 16 mission. He said the most immediately obvious and spectacular results were really for the Earth observations, for this was the first time that the Earth had been photographed from a distance in ultraviolet light, so that you could see the full extent of the hydrogen atmosphere, the polar auroras, and what we call the tropical air glow belt. Microscopy, the art of making photographs with a microscope, brings the small-scale world to people who might not have access to it. A microscope reveals a miniature universe where tiny animals can astound us, as with this photograph of a tardigrade. Known colloquially as moss piglets, tardigrades are eight-legged, segmented microanimals, invisible to the naked eye. Our minds have as hard a time perceiving very large things as they do the very small. That's why one talented person dying too young is a tragedy, while 100,000 people or more dying in a pandemic is an abstraction, a statistic. When studying the universe, we start with Earth, which also is big enough to be outside our everyday scale of physical reality. Never mind the size of the solar system or Milky Way galaxy, or the unfathomable distance of 400 million light years to some distant world. This strange region of outer space lies much closer, about 26,000 light years away toward Sagittarius, the constellation of the Archer, and glows in every type of light that we can see. To the right of the colorful central region lies Sagittarius A, a strong radio source that coincides with Sag A+, the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. I hope you're impressed with how precise astronomers can be when describing size and distance. It's not just a big black hole or a huge one, but supermassive. Artists often beat astronomers to the far reaches of the universe, as you can see in this detail from Willem de Kooning's Composition 1955. A different corner of the universe from Sag A+, but still. Which leads me to ask, why do we have a certain number of feet in a mile? Queen Elizabeth I decreed the statute mile to have 5,280 feet. But that's just a fact. It explains nothing. Understanding the answer to this seemingly simple question forced me to school myself in basic astronomy, geometry, and metrology, which is the study of measurement. I prepared myself for the journey by training, so these are not the musings of a lazy afternoon. This is more like law come down the mountain with Moses. One workout was playing an online geometry game, Euclid the Game, until I could do each of its 25 levels in the minimum number of moves, as shown here. Nonetheless, at the intuitive levels, I have to forget everything I think I know about geometry or anything else. The outcome has been half luck, half preparation, and 100% inspiring. Geometry literally means earth measure. We sometimes call it sacred geometry because studying the ancient mysteries tends to make one humble in the presence of a perceived divine order, a system beyond the capacity of humans to devise. As with the rituals of temple priests, geometers too have sacraments to impart divine grace on their work. For example, on a pair of compasses, the top is referred to as the Godhead, and the arms represent the rays of creation. When drawing a vertical line in a circle, you start at the top so as to bring heaven down to earth. Perhaps it is not surprising that this well-worn path of science took me on a spiritual journey. Pictured here is the last remaining marble meter bar in Paris from the 1790s, installed so that people could come and check the accuracy of their meter sticks against the standard. When we speak of measure, the whole world generally thinks in terms of the metric system. But people have been measuring things since forever, and the meter is a newfangled unit only a couple centuries old. The French invented the metric system because they could not understand the old measures. That's not their fault. No one could. The United States is the only major country that still uses the ancient system of weights and measures together with the metric. The most basic unit of the old system of metrology or measurement is the foot. By coincidence, our so-called English foot is the datum or root 1 of the ancient system. This fact has only been rediscovered in the past few decades. It is not controversial because no one cares, but we should, for it embodies a most beautiful spiritual truth: unity. All is one, all is connected. Just a couple of lifetimes ago, the ancient system of metrology was the darling of the learned societies. Here Isaac Newton attends a meeting of the Royal Society. He spent thousands of hours trying and failing to understand what we know now. Times change, but geometry does not. The metric system limits itself by being decimal, whereas the duodecimal nature of the old way better fits the 12ness of nature, and duodecimal embraces the decimal, so therefore better harmonizes with reality. John Quincy Adams said so a couple centuries ago, when as Secretary of State he recommended to the U.S. Senate that the country not adopt the metric system. He's pictured on a map showing 440 miles of road between Boston and Washington, D.C., and 440 happens to be an important number as you add the 440th part to the polar radius of Earth to get the mean radius. Some people dismiss the old ways, scoffing at the inch having been defined as the length of 3 barleycorns set end to end. They miss the point. The barleycorn reference was only a way to get ordinary people to relate to the length. The inch is 1/12th of a foot. That is its scientific grounding. The old system is based on the shape of the world and on the behavior of number itself. We're here to celebrate numeracy, ease and familiarity with numbers as a path to integrating oneself with nature. Ancient civilizations encoded their knowledge of the earth in monuments and temples, and scholars over the centuries generally agreed that the planet had been surveyed with precision in remote antiquity. The Great Pyramid at Giza, for example, encodes an abundance of earth measure. English mathematician and astronomer John Greaves inscribed a foot measure in the so-called King's Chamber when he examined it in 1636. Apparently, he was struck by ways that the foot was built into the dimensions of the pyramid. The matter has since been taught to me in great detail, and some of it revealed. The old system of linear measurement is based on the behavior of number and on the shape of the world, and works by fractions. In foot measures, you add the 175th part to move from one classification to the next, or the 440th part. Some key fractions are revealed in the differences between various rational approximations to pi. The ancients used different values of pi, such as 25 divided by 8 or 22 divided by 7. Hipparchus of Nicaea observed the heavens from Alexandria, Egypt. He is credited with estimating the average distance to the moon in terms of Earth radiuses. By the time Isaac Newton was working on the distance, the accepted formula was 60 Earth radiuses. He used a rough value of the polar radius and was considerably short of the true mark. The trick is to use Earth mean radius and add the 175th part, just as you would with a foot measure. Let us return to the idea of fresh perspectives. Think flaky psycho, and you may understand my early reluctance to take any spiritual lessons from the ancient mystery schools. Number and verifiable facts formed my pole star. The research methods of journalism blinded me for safe passage down dark alleys where crackpots, Christian fundamentalists, and conspiracy theorists shouted from broken windows, "Illuminati! The Masons did it! New World Order!" My training inspired me to stick to the facts, to stay calm and focus on the science. Despite my misgivings, repeated hammer taps of cosmic revelation gradually opened my eyes and led me to widen my net of perception. It turns out that my emotional cell walls are more permeable, more open to non-rational influence than is my conscious self. This painting by Paul Klee suggests how memories and emotions float just below the surface of everyday life. Its label at the Philadelphia Museum of Art says, "In fish magic, Paul Klee creates a magical realm where the aquatic, the celestial, and the earthly intermingle." Work and study resulted in several eureka moments for me, at least one of which, figuratively, brought me to my knees in awe. Much preferable to being brought to your knees in pain, which is the other main path to spiritual growth. This beautiful 13th century pavement in Westminster Abbey hints at the curious interconnections one may find when exploring. For the same Italian master who did this, Cosmati, also made a public mosaic near where I lived in Rome. The difference between the largest and smallest practical values of pi equals 1.01376, to which you might say, so what? Recall that the length of the Parthenon equals 1 arcsecond of Earth mean circumference, 101.376 feet, and is bent to match the curvature of Earth. 11th century Persian geometer al-Biruni calculated the Earth's radius by measuring the dip of the horizon from a mountaintop of known height. This method proved to be more accurate than measuring between two locations. Here is the far side of the moon as photographed from 1,000,000 miles away by NASA's Deep Space Climate Observatory. Earth mean radius expanded by the 175th part becomes 3,456 nautical miles, a key canonical number. The small slice of Earth radius added to calculate the distance to the moon is itself a fractal of the larger system, and the expanded Earth radius in statute miles is a fractal of a solar dimension. All these multifaceted relationships are as common as weeds once you walk in the field. While studying the Earth, people also naturally observe the sun and moon, the other planets, the stars. The moon is special, however, our partner attached by invisible threads of electromagnetism and gravity. In the same way that having a close relationship with another human being can challenge the best of us, so it is with the moon. It's relatively easy to get a handle on the basic rhythm of the moon. almost as easy as going to sleep to the sound of ocean waves. But why does the moon seem to wander so much? Close at times, more distant at others. Is that a random phenomenon, or is there a pattern? It takes more time to see lunar patterns, as you can see in this photo montage by Hungarian astronomer György Szaponyai, showing a moon analemma over the period of 1 month. One wow moment of mine was grand and fundamental when the 3-4-5 triangle proved itself capable of calculating lunar and solar distances. This stuff blew my mind. Before these awakenings, it had appeared necessary to rewrite the history books, but this new knowledge of number seemed as basic to me as gravity or relativity. You can go as far as you like with this system, and it maintains its integrity. People might be surprised that this number system forms a cosmic ladder even more elegant than the ones used by astronomers today to measure distances. For a long time, people have had a hard time reaching heaven. Chris Martin drew this for the Institute of Physics, but the parsec derived from ancient values is part of the structure of number itself. The canonical value for average moon distance multiplied by the distance to the Sun, both in nautical miles, rockets you into Einstein's fourth dimension where time and space are woven together. One parallax angle arcsecond measured in nautical miles equals the circle number 360 to the fourth power times 1,000. How could we throw away such beauty and simplicity? For more on how some of the secrets of the universe reveal themselves in patterns, tune in to part 2 of the thrilling series, Revealed Science, Proof of God, or if you prefer, How Number Shapes Reality. Thank you.